Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Hundreds of thousands of people joined protest marches today across the world to voice their concern over the new US President Donald Trump. But the aim was to highlight women's and minority rights, which protesters say are under threat from the new administration. Tens of thousands of people joined the rally in London and other cities across the UK. The biggest, though, was in Washington, as the BBC's Catty Kay now reports.
They came in their thousands. Children, men and women, lots of women.
I came from Hawaii to be here today, and I'm here to represent all the people that can't be here.
It gives me hope for our future. It was a really dark day when the election results came in.
It's not that we hate Trump, but we hate what he stands for, you know, and bigotry and racism, we're not going to stand for that.
John Kerry came too, no longer America's Secretary of State, now just a citizen taking a political stand.
This march was conceived as a celebration of women, and of one woman in particular, Hillary Clinton. But after the surprising American election, it quickly became a protest, and a protest against one man in particular, Donald Trump.
There were huge crowds in other American cities too, in liberal bastions like Los Angeles, where they didn't vote for Trump. And in Chicago, where the turnout was so big, they had to change the route. In solidarity, they protested around the world. In London, a march that began on the doorstep of the American embassy was joined by 100,000 people, from the famous to the frail. They marched also in Paris today, and in Sydney, and in Nairobi. In Washington, the protests surpassed President Trump's inauguration crowd, a slap in the face to a man who cares about size. And it was about more than women's issues. This was a repudiation of the Trump worldview.
Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here.
President Trump takes office as the most unpopular new president ever. Today's march put faces to that fact. Catty Kay, BBC News, Washington.
Well, President Trump himself made an official visit to the CIA today as part of the first full day of his presidency. His relations with intelligence officials have been tense after he criticised their assessment that Russia had helped him get elected. But speaking at the agency's headquarters, he said they were amazing people and had his backing 1,000%. Here's our North America correspondent James Cook.
Before his inauguration, Donald Trump compared America's intelligence agencies to Nazis. Now he's their boss, and here at CIA headquarters, he's trying to rewrite history.
The reason you're my first stop is that, as you know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth. What? And they sort of made it sound like I had a feud with the intelligence community. And I just want to let you know, the reason you're number one stop, it is exactly the opposite.
But this was his own tweet just over a week ago, accusing the intelligence agencies of spreading fake news, attacking them with the words, "Are we living in Nazi Germany?" It's impossible to reconcile these two Trumps.
We're going to do great things. We're going to do great things. We've been fighting these wars for longer than any wars we've ever fought. We have not used the real abilities that we have. We've been restrained. We have to get rid of ISIS. We have to get rid of ISIS. We have no choice.
The president also confirmed that he'd meet the British Prime Minister Theresa May very shortly. And in Myanmar, the Foreign Secretary said he was looking forward to doing business with the new US leader.
The new president has made it very clear that he wants to put Britain at the front of the line for a new trade deal. And obviously that's extremely exciting and important.
But Germany's leader had what sounded like a coded warning for President Trump.
I believe it's best if we work together based on rules, common values and joint actions in international economics, international trade and military alliances.
As global leaders and citizens alike scramble to come to terms with the reality of the new Trump era, it is clear that the elevation to the most powerful position in the West of a controversial populist is having a big effect, not just here in the United States, but around the world. As President Trump was driven back to the White House tonight, protesters could be seen from his motorcade. And as he entered the building on his first full day in office, their shouts would have been ringing in his ears. It's tough being in charge. James Cook, BBC News, Washington.
Well, our North America editor, John Sopel, is outside the West Wing of the White House. Let's turn then to those protests. John, yesterday belonged to the president. Did today belong to those who oppose him?
You know, throughout the campaign, one statistic that Donald Trump loved to recite was how many thousands of more people would come to his rallies than Hillary Clinton's. Well, I think having seen today, it's clear that many, many more people were protesting against Donald Trump than came to his inauguration yesterday. And that underlines just how divided this country remains after that bruising election. One bit of division that Donald Trump tried to put an end to today was that visit to CIA headquarters, the first visit that he has made. No president has gone that quickly before. But no president before has sort of almost declared war on the agency in that run-up to him taking over office. And I thought it was significant the word restrained that he used. Does that mean that he's going to try and rewrite the rule book for the CIA on how they can operate in the future? And one other thing to talk about, it looks like Theresa May is going to be, if not the first foreign leader, among the first foreign leaders to come to visit Donald Trump in the White House. I'm sure Downing Street is delighted about that. That could happen as soon as this Thursday.
John, thank you very much.
500,000 people on the streets of Washington, maybe more. Hundreds of thousands demonstrating in other cities in America and around the world, including London. More than 1 million people in all, led by women, letting President Trump know in no uncertain terms the scale of the opposition he faces. And with the best will in the world, Mr. Trump's response struck many here as a bit odd. On a visit to the CIA, an agency whose activities in relation to the leaked dossier he recently likened to those of the Nazis, he mounted a rambling assault on the American media for its coverage of yesterday's inauguration. The temperature is certainly rising, and we've only got to day 2.
After the setback, the fight back. A broad anti-Trump coalition of protesters have taken to the streets of Washington today. It looks and sounds like the start of a movement to oppose the new president on multiple issues. From gay rights to women's rights, and from climate change to healthcare. And if 500,000 were on the streets of Washington, hundreds of thousands more held marches in different American cities. This was Chicago, Obama's hometown. And in New York, many more protested at Trump's proposed policies. Washington is now a different city. A new administration is in charge with a radically different, and for the establishment, disruptive agenda. At the inaugural balls last night, Donald Trump and the new First Lady Melania took to the dance floor. Exulting in his unlikely victory, and still promising to end what he called the carnage caused by previous presidents. Already the reversal of the Obama years is underway.
Next is an executive order minimizing the economic burden of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act.
Last night he signed a bill beginning to unravel health care reforms, which many Democrats regard as their greatest achievement.
I, James Norman Mattis.
And America has a new defense secretary. Trump's favorite general, Mad Dog Mattis, as the president calls him, is now in charge of an American military that is still at war in Afghanistan and against ISIS. This afternoon, the president went to speak to the analysts of the CIA. He has compared the agency to the Nazis for how it handled a dossier that linked him to Russia. But he used this moment to launch an attack on journalists.
As you know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth. But
The CIA officers cheered him on, and in ever more bizarre remarks, he started talking about seizing Iraq's oil.
So we should have kept the oil, but okay. Maybe you'll have another chance. But the fact is, we should have kept the oil.
It's 36 hours since his inauguration, and few are even trying to predict where this presidency is heading. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
Nor were the protests we saw today just in America. Women around the world have also been demonstrating against President Trump, like here in Sydney. Women's rights groups and anti-Trump protesters demonstrated at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. And organisers say up to 100,000 people turned out for a march through central London. But as we just saw, the biggest anti-Trump demonstration by far was here in Washington.
Walking the same route as their new president took yesterday, Washington was today reclaimed by those Donald Trump has alienated and offended. Women mostly, the young and the old. But some men too. Liberal America is on the move.
There are many reasons why people have come on this march today. But the single unifying reason seems to be a loathing of the new president and what the protesters see as his illiberal policies.
The scale of the march surprised even the organisers. So many marching in the name of democracy.
Tell me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!
And only 24 hours after that same democracy gave them their 45th president.
I'm marching against Donald Trump.
What's your main reason for coming?
Everything. Donald Trump. We don't like him.
They're trying to roll back our rights. You know, women, as immigrant communities, as Muslim communities, all the gains we've made, those of us that believe in equity and justice, that is not what this administration represents.
And Madonna made a surprise appearance to support this political backlash.
Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here.
Today, many Americans opposed to President Trump made their voices heard, an unprecedented challenge. But many remain in favour of him here, and in this divided country, they have had their say at the ballot box. Penny Marshall, ITV News, Washington.
And Robert joins me now. Robert, in a way, I guess not fair to compare the supporters. President Trump's supporters live a long way away, many of them in middle America. But big protests today. Did they change anything, do you think?
Well, look, these were massive and frankly very impressive protests. The largest demonstration I've ever seen on the streets of this city. But it also begs a question, you know, how does the opposition, how effective can the opposition be in resisting the Trump presidency? Republicans control the White House, the House itself. They control the Senate. Conservatives will be able to certainly control the Supreme Court for the next 4 years. So it's just not clear at this stage how Democrats will ever win a single policy battle or slow down a presidency that they regard as an assault on their values.
OK, now this talk to the CIA, I mean, most people here are finding it a bit odd, fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've always been looking for a pivot, haven't we? You know, a slightly more presidential and more calibrated language. It's dawning on some people there may never be a pivot, and that's a thought as Theresa May heads over here next week. You know, she's won the race to be the first foreign leader into the Trump White House. It's just not absolutely obvious you want to win that race unless you're very confident that you can kind of shape and moderate his presidency, because at the moment, as I've said, it's just not at all clear where the Trump term is going. Just no idea on policy terms whatsoever.
OK, Robert, thank you very much indeed. And finally, if the mutual hostility and division of the past few days has made you despair, there was some solace to be found in the level of humour on display in all the protest signs today, whatever your views. In the UK, there was the brilliantly understated, "I'm really quite cross." And here in America, not usually a sign guy, but geez. Mr. Trump came in for a bit of stick himself with very small protest, sad, not to mention the slightly cheeky, "we shall overcome." This day, though, of course, belonged to the protesters, but come Monday, it will be down to business. And only then will we really begin to get a sense of what this presidency will mean for all of us.
I've been getting away with it all